Welcome to Heated Conversations, episode 4. Super excited that you all decided to tune in to this episode. I'm very excited about our guest that we have. Today's guest is the head coach of Texas Women's University, Lisa, who is in Denton. If you didn't know that, Denton, Texas. It's the only NCAA gymnastics university in Texas, which Texas is pretty big, which we need more of you universities to join in. But we're super excited to have Lisa and her talk about the Pioneers and her program and talk about her own values and kind of how she leads her team to what they are. They're multiple NCAA Division II national champions. And so we're excited to have her on today. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you so much. I'm super excited to be here today and excited for our conversation.
Yes, I'm super excited. So how has your journey of coaching and gymnastics come to this point? Like, where did you start? Were you a gymnast as a kid? Did your parents put you in gymnastics when you were young? And then when did you decide that, hey, I want to do this for the rest of my life and be a part of the sport for the rest of my life?
Yeah, I love that question. For me, gymnastics, really, I got started. My parents, I don't think really knew anything about gymnastics. It was in me. I was flipping around the house and doing all these crazy things. And one of my best friends from school at the time, I was almost 8, I guess, when I started. Her mom said, "Hey, I'm taking her to rec class at the Civic Center. Does Lisa want to go?" And my parents were like, "Please take her, like get her flipping somewhere else." And so I went, and after a short time, they said she needs to go to a real gym. And so off I went, and I started competing pretty quickly thereafter and kind of moved through the levels quickly. And when I was about 10 or 11, I guess, I started going to Team Central in St. Louis when they started that gym, and Scott and Debbie Cusimano were the coaches there. And I had the great opportunity to be a part of their program, and just loved every minute of it. Had the absolute best time, loved the sport. They were great mentors and still are some of the most important people in my life. And then going into my senior year was when they actually left Team Central, started Jim Porter's Gymnastics in St. Charles, Missouri. And so I went with them and competed that one year for Jim Porter's, had an opportunity to go to Illinois State. And that is where I competed my college days. I missed out on sophomore year because I tore my ACL in the first meet of the year, unfortunately. Um, and but had a great experience there. And honestly, I learned a lot in my time there. Things that I didn't know at the time I would be able to use and would impact me. But during my time, it was kind of a transitional time for that program. The coaches that I came in with my freshman year actually retired from coaching right after my freshman year. And then I had 2 other head coaches in my time. So I had a total of 3 head coaches in my time and learned a lot. I mean, again, in hindsight, I feel like that really impacted me. It was a great experience for me to just see a lot of different things in that time. But I graduated from there and wanted to go to grad school. I wanted to get my master's in exercise and sports nutrition. My path was I wanted to be a sports dietitian. I wanted to help specifically athletes with eating disorders. And so I decided that TWU had the program that I was looking for in that master's. And I was actually back home talking to my old coach and, telling him this is what I decided. Here's where I'm going to school. And he said, why don't you call Frank and see if he has a graduate assistant position or something like that. You could coach a little while you're going to school. And I knew Frank Kudlak, the former head coach, and I knew of the program because, him and my coach were very close. And so I called him and I said, I would love to do this, but I actually will graduate in December. So coming in the middle of the year, I don't know if that would work. And it was just incredible the way all of the pieces have fallen in place for this journey, because he said, this is actually the first year that I will ever have a graduate assistant position. And I don't have funding for it until second semester, until January. So, I graduated in December of 2004 and moved right to Texas. And when I arrived, like I said, it was just kind of I'm gonna coach on the side because I love the sport, and then I'll move on. But in a very short time here and getting involved with the program, I fell in love with coaching, and I knew that this was exactly where I was supposed to be and what I was supposed to be doing. And again, at the time, I thought I'll finish grad school and then I'll move on to another program, and had some great opportunities, but Frank gave me a great opportunity to stay here as a full-time assistant, and really just teach me all aspects of the program, which was something I really wasn't being offered in other programs. And so I stayed with him doing that until he retired in 2011. And then I got to take over the program as the head coach in the fall of 2011. And here I am today.
Very nice. Very nice. That's good. I think it's cool to hear people's stories where they kind of make the complete run through from, being young and getting to the point where you're at today, where you're head coach at a NCAA supported university, and having great people in your life. Like you talked about, as you were growing up, you had great coaches that you felt good about and that you see them as mentors, and unfortunately that's not always the story for everyone, but, very fortunate that that is your story, and that you've had sounds like great people along the journey, even to this point. And I think, as we talk about more in this, in our conversation, I think, it can really shape someone, especially in a positive way, right? Give examples of, when I get an opportunity to be able to coach or to be able to lead a group of people, or if it's the young girls, whatever it is, I have examples that I've seen. I have examples that have impacted, your life or my life personally, that I can kind of go back and use as archive data to be able to know, like, hey, these are ways that I was that people were able to connect to me. So this is ways that I can try to connect to my athletes or the people that I'm leading. So it's very, very cool to hear that it's full circle, and and even though your circle is not done because you're still coaching and you're, I'm excited to kind of hear more about that journey and what that all entailed. What was some of the things that you learned from your early mentors, the ones when you're doing club gym in the Midwest? Which, shout out to the Midwesterners, because I'm a Midwesterners too. That you learned, from them specifically, that you have carried into your coaching now at TWU?
I would say I learned a lot. I think one of the biggest, though, that I learned through my club coaches, and then my freshman year college coach in particular, I think they all did this very well, was that I always knew how much they loved and cared about me on a human level. And I think that is the most important thing that we can give our athletes. And like you said, I have been so fortunate to have had that be my experience. And I don't think that's the experience for all athletes in any sport. And so, they pushed me and they made me better every day, and they had high expectations of me. And, not to say there were not those times, that I would leave practice and be like, oh my gosh, I
Right.
can't stand them, but
Right.
that's just natural because it's part of the process. But I think the biggest thing that they taught me was that I knew it was always my safe place, and it was always where I was loved, no matter how I performed, no matter what the results were. We could be frustrated in a moment, but they were always going to be there for me. And that's something that I really try to give to my athletes, and I think is top priority.
Yeah, no, that's great. Talking about those things, I know doing coaching, especially being a head coach, you can't do it by yourself. And, you couldn't even become the gymnast that you were without the mentors that you had. So who are some of the other coaches and mentors that you have on your staff that help you lead these young ladies in your program?
Yes, so currently our staff is, so Kristen Harold is kind of my cornerstone. She's been with us for, this will be her 9th year. And I feel like her and I, we've worked together for so long and been through, a lot of other staffing changes and different things, and just have had that constant relationship, that constant desire to push each other and to push this program. And so absolutely, I mean, I could not do what I do, and our program couldn't be where we are without her, because her passion and commitment for this program has been incredible over 8 going on 9 years now. And then Matt is our other full-time assistant, and Matthew de Grand Prix, and he is starting his 2nd year with our program. And so super excited about what he brings to the program. And coming in as a young new assistant last year, and we kind of just throwing him into the fire of a lot of new things and a lot of new experiences, and he handled it all with a lot of grace, and is just always ready to work hard, always ready to learn, and has really jumped in and made an impact and been a great part of the staff as well. So that's where we're at currently. And then, I mean, the number of people who've impacted me through this program in the past, and former staff members that have been a part of this program that definitely have pushed me and pushed this program to be better and have left their mark on our program. I can't say enough about just every single person that comes in contact with the program and that we have as a part of our staff has made an impact, and we just wouldn't be where we are without each of them.
Yeah, that's great. What are some things that like about your staff specifically that really that they do to really help elevate your culture of your program, and even just to kind of line up to what your personal values are for the team, and then even talk about your own personal values, and then how each coach kind of walks that out in their own way?
Yeah, so I mean, I think first and foremost, when I've hired staff, it's always been in the mindset of, just like with our student athletes and recruiting, who they are as people are ultimately what comes first. I'm not just going to look at a piece of paper and what's on the resume and choose which one looks the best. They have to be good quality character people. And I think a big quality that carries across all of our staff and always has is just having a growth mindset is extremely important. And that's something that, again, is important to us for our student athletes to understand and to be a part of. And, I think we're role models no matter what, whether we choose to be or not, and good, bad, and everything in between for our student athletes. And so, we're constantly, sharing podcasts, sharing books, having conversations about skill development, whatever it may be. I think they see that from us, that, we're not in this place of, well, we've got it figured out, we're going to just like pull our little files here and do what we do and keep moving forward. We're continually growing and changing and pushing each other, and pushing this program in the meantime. And so, that to me is one of the things that really permeate our staff year to year, and makes us better. But like I said, I really hope, makes our student athletes better in the process too.
Yeah. No, that's great.
So yeah.
No, I think it's great. I think coming from that standpoint is super important. Being a coach, of especially young girls when they're at that point, because at the levels that you work with, they're at the point in their life where there's kind of on the tail end, not really on the tail end, but this is where they're going to get molded, right? Part of like a significant part of who they're going to become is during the times when they're, you know, from ages 13 to 21, just because they are in contact with so many different people, and they're exploring so many different things, and trying to solidify who they are, and having those right people who are good people around them that are teaching them or showing them examples of how to go about things the right way, how to be honest, and how to have integrity, how to work hard, how to give it your all, and how to be consistent. Those are things that they are looking for and they're yearning for. One of the things I say and I think is, everybody wants to be loved, they want to be liked, they want to be accepted, and they want to be cared for, right? And if they see those things and they really feel those things, it's really easy for them to buy into whatever you may want to do, or whatever you're trying to lead them, or wherever you're trying to take them. And that could be in a positive capacity, but it also could be in a not so positive capacity. It's just those emotions and those feelings need to be met, and when they're met, it allows them to open up, right? And it allows them to kind of buy into those things. And so it's awesome to hear that at TWU and with your program, that's kind of what you guys are trying to cultivate in a healthy way, is having personnel to be examples of those things. And a growth mindset, like you mentioned, is huge. Because I was just talking about this with someone earlier, that there's times where when we get stuck, especially in our sport with gymnastics, you may get stuck on a skill that you've done, and you forget that there was a journey to get to that point. And at some point you couldn't do it at all. Like, you didn't have, 1, the understanding, 2, the strength, 3, the coordination and timing, right? But you got to the point where you're there now. So why can't the next part of it, or next skill, or next thing in your journey do the same thing? Know that you've already built those characteristics, and you already built yourself to have those tools to be able to do it again. You're just applying it to the next thing. And just to remind athletes, like, hey, you know what? There's a point you didn't, and guess what? You're here. You have your Chenko full. Now, to get that full and a half, you might be frustrated because you're falling. But did you fall, or make mistakes and have successes and lose the skill and then get it back again when you're building it? Probably. And guess what? You're going to have to do the exact same thing again, and that talks more about who you are, your resilience, and your consistency to keep attacking those things, than really what the obstacle is, or what the goal that you may have. Any of the goals, I don't think, is really the point. If I want to be a national champion, that's not really the thing. It's, who am I as I become a national champion? That's what's important, right? And that is just the reward for all the work that you're doing. And that tells you, hey, when I do this, I can do this, and I do this, and I can get to these places, and a direction to be able to get to certain goals. Now you can go and say, hey, I want to be a doctor, and I want to open up my own practice. So what did I do to become a national champion? I did this, and this, these types of things. And this is the person I became. So I'm going to apply those same principles there, and become that doctor who has their own practice and helps people become healthier in whatever capacities.
Yeah. And I think, just like to go along with that, I think it really, like you said, how it builds the resiliency. And I think another piece of that is really important in our program and in those life skills is, along that journey too, I think also humility is a huge piece that, again, I think we really try to model and try to help them understand that, when you are stuck, when you are in that process of frustration, to, be humble enough to know that like maybe I just need to ask for some help.
Right.
And, because sometimes that mentality is like, okay, I just got to figure it out. I got to figure it out. I just got to make this happen. And, you see them like stirring those things in their mind as they're like walking back down the vault runway, for example. And, but learning that like, ask for help, let someone help you, even if it's just to talk it out. Maybe it's something technical. And I think, that's something how we operate as a staff. If, I'm struggling, I'm like, I feel like I've given all of the correction, I've given the drills, this isn't working. I may walk over to Chris and be like, hey, can you watch this? And like, do you have any different feedback? And, again, going back to your examples, I think that works in that as well in real life. I want to start my own practice. Okay, I have no idea how to do the business side of that. Let me go to somebody who does, ask them for
Right.
help so that like I can accomplish my goal.
Yeah.
So I love that you brought it up, and that just kind of, to me, they go kind of hand in hand in that process.
No, that's perfect. I think that's great. Humility is one of those things that that is super important, because it's hard. It's really hard for us to feel like we can be that vulnerable and feel like people will assume that we're being weak when we're asking, and to be okay, asking for help and finding the solutions, or looking for the solutions to be able to get unstuck from whatever we might feel stuck, and know that there's people who are really there to help, and even being that example, like you mentioned, when you rely on your staff to help you if you're stuck with the athlete just because you've given all that you feel like you needed to give them, and then having someone else to be able to do that, which kind of leads into my next question, is how do you delegate your responsibilities between your staff, for your team, like who coaches what events, who's in charge of recruiting, those types of things? And is there someone who kind of does like the almost like the motivation, who's kind of like the team, who like team pump up person, or just kind of helps boost that morale or the energy, if that's something that someone specifically kind of has that role, or if that's something you guys all embody?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, so at this current point in time, and obviously each year is a little bit different depending on makeup of our staff and what everybody's strengths are and things like that. But, again, Kristen has been a constant. So her role is pretty established, and honestly continuing to grow and change, I guess, too. But Kristen really oversees our recruiting. And then, it kind of then Matt and I do some things as well, but she's kind of our point person when it comes to recruiting and coordinating all of those things, and doing the majority, I guess, of the communication. And then in terms of event coaching, at this point in time, like I take the lead on beam, and Kristen takes the lead on floor. Matt takes the lead on vault and bars. But we really have kind of a little system in place too of, kind of secondary coaches as well. So, depending on what the days are and the rotations are, if we're doing, certain events, like I help out on bars when I can. Kristen helps Matt with vault and things like that. So we have, again, we think it's important to kind of have that point person, and kind of that main person overseeing. But everything we do is so collaborative that the lines, can get a little blurred, I think, in the best possible way. Because we communicate about assignments. We operate on a very, structured system in terms of like periodization and having, our light weeks and our hard weeks. And so we're all kind of in that same boat that, if it's a light week and we know this is the focus today, then assignments on each event will all reflect that, even though, different individuals are the ones actually like writing out the details of them. So again, I think we try to collaborate a lot, but that's kind of how we have it set up right now in terms of main event coaching. And I think you asked me something else, and I don't remember what the other part was.
Yeah. So the next part of it is like who, like when it comes to like energy, like is there somebody who within your staff who kind of, not necessarily boost like the team morale, but who's the person, when you come in, you could be like, hey, you know what, it's meet week, or hey, we're just starting our season, girls are coming back, we need some energy in the gym. Is that something that you guys all share? Is there a point person who kind of like brings that naturally?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think we share it in a lot of senses. And, again, I try to really empower our staff always, that it's not just Lisa speaking in every huddle because she's the head coach, or same with our student athletes. We really try to empower them that, if we're at a competition and a rotation ends, kind of their natural thing sometimes is to kind of stand around and wait for me to call them together. But they've over the last few years have really grown in that too, where they have taken more ownership over that, to like, okay, like Lisa's doing a evaluation or summary, she's busy, like, hey you guys, let's get together, here's what we got to do. Somebody will take the lead on that. But none of us are like over the top, like hype man kind of mentality. I think we're all pretty steady, but we certainly have our moments. I know I do, where I can just get a little more of that, like, excited
Yeah.
passion out, and they feel that. And but I think it's all shared. And I think ultimately, that energy is something we talk a lot about too as a team, is that that energy doesn't always come from it's not just one kind of energy is good energy. It doesn't have to be like the loudest, hypest person in the room that people are feeding off of. It's body language, it's look in the eyes, it's you can feel that energy and that focus and that intent on what someone is doing. And I think that really can can influence others around you. Just like on the opposite side, you've got the negative, the slouching, the eye rolls, the things like that. It just brings the energy down. They don't have to say anything, but it brings it down. And so we talk a lot about what energy looks like. And then side note, if our true hype man though really is Ryan Ramato. So when he's in the building, he's the true hype man.
Right.
But obviously he's not with us all the time. But again, I think it is important for them to understand that energy and passion don't always have to be shown through being the loudest person in the room.
No, that's good. And shout out to Ryan. I had Ryan on our second episode. And
I
so,
saw that.
yeah, so it's cool to kind of, hear from you, kind of mention him a little bit and what he does for your team. Talking about energy, what are some of your like values that you have, for your team, that you really are trying to make sure that anybody coming in as part of the team kind of understands and kind of not necessarily abides by, but that's kind of the heartbeat that they know that they're coming into, and that's kind of like the culture that you're cultivating. Kind of what from you as a head coach, kind of what are you trying to cultivate within the team or the teams that you are that you have each season?
Yeah, I think, we touched on a few of them already, but, I would say probably really the most important within our program are character, just being of strong character and integrity, having that growth mindset, because I think it's important. And we talk to, every recruit, or, anyone who has interest in our program potentially, and them understanding that that growth mindset is huge to us, and that we don't view them as a finished product. Sometimes I think it's like, okay, I made it to college gymnastics. That was my goal. I'm here. Now I just do what I do for 4 years. But, like I mentioned before, none of us are finished products, myself included. And so there's always, we want people who are hungry to grow athletically, academically, personally. So that's kind of a non-negotiable for us. And then just, commitment, being committed to the team and to the teammates and to the goals that we've set, which ties into being very team centered, very team focused. our program is not about one individual and one individual reaching her goals of, whatever it may be. Like, yes, we want that. And we, of course, ask them what their individual goals are, and we want to help them get there. But at the end of the day, decisions we make, are going to be in the best interest of the team and the team goals. And so we want people who buy into that and understand that by, each person being their best and going for their individual goals and maybe accomplishing those goals along the way, that is what's going to help us reach our goals as a team. So I would say those are really our biggest priorities in terms of our values and what we try to hold true to all the time and what we're looking for in any athletes that become a part of our program.
Yeah. Now talking about the team as well, what are some things kind of that gets them fired up that you guys do? I know when I was coaching at Utah State, so some of the things that we would do is we would do some kind of team game or team bonding stuff, especially when they would go to competitions. Like, and when you're traveling, you're in the hotel, we would have, our team meeting, and then we'd kind of do like a team activity to kind of keep them, kind of engaged and kind of, coming back to what's the goal of whatever competition or what's the goal of what, what we're doing this season. But also, is there like retreats that you do? I know you mentioned Ryan. Is that a part of kind of what you guys do as a team to kind of build momentum and kind of build on a lot of those things that you just mentioned as values to your program?
Yeah, I think we really try to use a lot of different types of things to build that excitement, to build those relationships, and just build their team chemistry and their buy-in to the goals. Like you said, Ryan is a big part of that on a team and an individual level. He works with our team in group settings, and and like I said, he's the hype man. He'll get them going, but always provides so much great perspective. I love the perspective that he brings, and just having it, him not being a gymnast himself or a gymnastics coach, having just that kind of outside perspective in a way, but completely understanding a competitor's mindset and things like that. So he does a lot of different types of things with our team, and then some individual things as well to help people, with some of those roadblocks and those people who reach out who really want that personal growth. And so we're grateful to have him involved. And then just within what we do, I mean, there's a million different things throughout the year, all sorts of different things. They love the games. They love, when we can do a dinner at my house, and we'll always get into some kind of game. And it tends to get a little heated, a little competitive, because they're all obviously competitive athletes. So it can get a little crazy. But it's always fun, and you always learn about each other, and just those things, like you said, it builds so much that you don't even realize it's building. And then we do some more organized things as well as a team in terms of an overnight retreat in the fall. And we, on Saturdays in the fall, we really designate that day. We may do a little bit of gymnastics, but typically those days, those practices are more so for conditioning and then growth. And so a lot of times, most Saturdays we'll bring in a guest speaker, and we have brought in over the years, my gosh, like so many amazing people from our community, from across the country, from our university, and try to really have a really diverse group of people come in and speak with them, and from all different perspectives. And some are in athletics, some are not in athletics, and have them engage with our team, and really just kind of continuing to help in that growth of those values and those areas that are going to help them now in their time as athletes, but also in their time after they graduate. So I think that has been really impactful. And sometimes it helps them just make a connection with, we bring in an individual who's a lawyer, and we've got a law student on our team currently, a pre-law. So like there's a great future network of somebody that you can get advice from and connect with and utilize down the road. So those are some of the things that we do, and just some fun things, throughout the year. And like you said, I think there's nothing like team travel, getting out on the road together, and whether it's an organized, game event, or it's just whatever ends up happening when you're out on the road traveling and sitting in the airports and things, that I know feedback from student athletes, those are some of their favorite memories too, to just build those relationships together.
Yeah, that's good. And for competitiveness within your program, what are things that you guys do either for lineup, like inner squads? Like, do you guys do inner squads during the year? Is there other things that you like to do to just kind of see where their natural competitiveness, or even just to pull that out, getting ready for a competition? Say I have a big competition coming up, or even just the first competition, what are things, just let's play spike ball. Let's see which team wins, just to kind of see what under a pressure situation, how they respond. What are some of those things that you do for your team, and what are some of the responses that you get from your team when you do those things?
Honestly, I would say we keep a lot of that kind of in the gym and sports specific. I think like you said, like I said, they're extremely competitive, and I always have this like deep-seated fear that we're going to be playing like kickball or something and someone's going to injure themselves, so because they get so competitive. So they do those fun things, but I try not to make them too competitive for that reason. But we do really put an emphasis on that competitiveness, and on giving them opportunities to be in different situations with that. By I would say the most consistent way we do that is once we get started with official practices in the fall, usually mid-September, Fridays kind of become a designated team day, competition, inter squad, game day. It looks a little different week to week depending on how early in the fall it is, or if it's a light week, if it's whatever. But even at the beginning of the fall, if we're not in the place where we're doing, okay, it's an inter squad and everyone's doing a full set on every event, like that's not where we're at. But we will put them in competitive situations, maybe dividing the team into two and have a theme, and each group has like their little theme that they can dress up to, or they can just kind of rally around and set up a point system and have them kind of compete with with some fun involved, just so that they start getting in that mentality of okay, you're up, everybody's watching you. It starts to feel a little like meet season, but just with a little bit different focus. And then as the fall proceeds, and we get closer to season, obviously those turn into more often being more just inter squads and lineups and things. But we really try to keep those lineups as large as we can for as long as we can. So trying to keep it in two teams, so as many people can have opportunities as possible to be in those competitive situations, so that we can start to really see who's really thriving in these situations, who has hit everything in practice, but gets into that show situation and may struggle and let the nerves take over. And then that just gives us guidance of how maybe we can help them or put them in more situations, or maybe point them towards some of our resources like sports psychology or Ryan or something like that can help them get over those mental humps. Because as at this point, 99% of the time it's mental, more than physical, when they get into those situations. So it's fun, but it's also helpful as we get ready for season to kind of see how people do in those situations.
Right. And, as you mentioned, some of the outside resources that they can use, is there a difference, in hours, it being a Division II program, in how many hours that they're allotted? So then they are allotted to do gymnastics, so they can focus on some of their academic sides, or even just be able to have time to go and, seek whatever other areas of the university that they may need, if it's academic help, if it's, some of the stuff for mental health, if that's a thing. How is the balance, at TWU and really for divisions? Because I think it could be different, or some people may not know, some of the listeners and some of the viewers may not know what the structure is, especially if you're in club. Sometimes, you come from clubs that do 16 hours a week. Sometimes you come from clubs that may do, 30 some hours a week. And understanding the balance between different divisions and what it is, or if it's similar across the board.
Yeah, so foundational NCAA level, we are held to the same limitations, hours, things like that as Division I. So our schedules look pretty similar. We've got 8 hours of required time allowed once we start classes up until like our official practice time starts, till our date comes. And then at that point we get 20 hours a week, no more than 4 hours in a day. So all of that is the same as far as what you're allowed to utilize. And then after that, I think, it probably is very just different program to program and things like that, as far as what they do outside of that or how much of that they use or don't use. But, I think, again, for us, like, I think our student athletes, they have opportunities to utilize those resources outside of practice time and things, but we're always going to put those things first. So, there have been scenarios where, someone says, hey, like, we know they're trying to get into, the counseling center or something like that. And the only time I can get in is Thursday during the first hour of practice. Like, okay, then that is where you'll be. Like, that's your priority, and then come when you're done. And so, again, it just goes back to like, not just saying, but showing them that is our priority, is like them as a person and making sure they're in a good place mentally and physically. And so we work around that when needed. But otherwise, I would say, everything is pretty similar in how we operate between us and Division I programs.
Very nice. This next question is a 3-part question. So the first part is, what makes TWU unique? So what is like almost like a kind of fun fact about TWU? Also, what is TWU like known for academically? If I'm a prospect, athlete who's looking into universities, and I'm looking into TWU, what are some of the things that are kind of their highlight academic programs? And then also, it being named Texas Women University, is it a all-female school?
Yes, all great questions. So I'll start with the first one, the last one you asked, actually. TWU is actually a co-ed institution. So when it originally began, it was a women's only institution, and then it did become co-ed back in the 1980s. And however, we are still much more heavily female populated than male populated. So our percentage of male students is much smaller than our female students. So with that goes one of the things that makes us most unique, is that we have only female athletics. So we don't have any male sports teams outside of, there are some intramural teams, but within our actual athletics umbrella, we only have female sports. And so to me, that is makes a big difference for us, because I think we all know where the battles are for resources and things like that when you're part of a large co-ed athletic department. And so being a part of a university that has a department that is all females, and therefore, that's where the resources go. And I love how our student athletes feel so valued here. And they truly are, not just from financial and tangible resources, but just how well they're supported. They're known here, they're valued here, their professors know who they are, they know what they do. They know how gifted they are academically as well. And so I think, and we're a very small athletic department. And so I think those things make us unique. And I think in some sense, that kind of goes against sometimes growing up, I think some of the athletes think that goes against everything they wanted, or because it's just not the norm. You grow up thinking about being a part of, at this huge university with all these sports and going to football games and all of those things, which are great, no doubt. But I think, athletes need to really open their minds and kind of see like, okay, but what else is there? And I think for us, when student athletes are able to visit our campus, see our campus, feel what it feels like to be a part of this program and this department and this university and this community, it's like, oh, this is something like I didn't even know I wanted, but I want it. And so I think we are unique because there's a lot unknown, I think, to a lot of people about us and about what our program is about and who we are and what we're capable of. And so, so there's a lot of uniqueness there. And then in terms of what we're known for, we have a huge variety really of offerings in terms of majors and things, but we're known mainly for our health sciences. So we have, honestly, our nursing program is one of the top programs in the country. However, from a recruiting standpoint, being a nursing major and an athlete at this point is not really something that is necessarily feasible in the normal time frame of graduation. So we've had a lot of folks who've come through and gone, different routes, and our nurses, it just takes a little bit different route. But any of our health sciences is, and it's great because we have a lot of people that come in like, I want to do something in medical and health sciences, but I don't know what. And you can kind of work that out while you're here and know that you're going to have a great option because we have a great pre-PT program through our kinesiology department. We've got incredible pre-med, we've got pre-PA, pre-OT. All of those programs are well established and well known and set up student athletes really well. And then behind that, I would say, or in addition to that, would be our business department is also doing very well, has grown a lot over the last several years. And we've had a lot of athletes go through those programs recently and come out ready to get to work and ready to accomplish bigger things. So
no, it's very good. I think those are super important, especially, not only the athletics of a college experience, right? First of all, most people should be going to school for their academics because it's about tomorrow, not necessarily just the journey of today of doing athletics. But what am I going to do the rest of my life? And thinking about those things. But also, I think having a plethora, especially with healthcare, I think that's a very important piece of what we need in the world, right? Great people who can help us, and especially in the sport of gymnastics. How often we probably have seen in our careers gymnasts having to see different specialties just because the sport can just beat up our body, and just the part of it is just the lack of education of knowing proper training or even just proper fueling of our bodies that causes our bodies to break down. And just having great people who understand, especially in gymnastics, understand the sport and can help athletes be able to get back to the sport that they're doing, but also to help everybody else and in other sports or just in common life and stuff like that. So I think it's great for whoever is looking into any healthcare or health sciences. I think it's great to be able to look into Texas women's, even if you're not going to do athletics, but just a great option. So thank you thank you for talking about that and bringing that up. We're going to transition back into kind of the gymnastics part. In regards to recruiting, you mentioned that Kristen, right? She handles most of that. For you guys, when you guys are looking at a prospect athlete who is of age, with now the NCAA rules where a university cannot recruit a athlete until they are going into their junior year, June 15th, going into their junior year. When you're looking at those athletes and you're starting to have the process of recruiting them, what are things that you are looking for? And when those recruits are trying to contact you, what are some of the best ways to either contact you guys, or what are some tips that you may have for recruits to be able to put in any of the messages that they send? If they send it through email or a phone call, or is DMing you or tweeting you, like what are ways that are appropriate as well to be able to kind of get your attention?
Yeah. So, I mean, first of all, in terms of what we're looking for, I think there's the obvious gymnastics ability. But specifically, really looking at, how does this individual's gymnastics really fit in to our program? Could they step into a lineup and compete today? And then, kind of along with that, and next step of that is, you're always wanting to continue to push the level of your program. So, it's even more like what we're truly looking for is, okay, can this person step in and, be the best in the lineup today? Because that's what's going to continue to make us better. If every recruiting class you bring in is a little bit, further ahead in terms of that ability than the athletes you already have on your team. And that's, obviously just the nature of it. And our younger athletes continue to get better. Obviously there's no comparison and nothing that can replace the experience of the older athletes. So there's still so much value in that. But from a pure skill level, you want to be upping that all the time. So that's what we're looking for in terms of their skills. We're looking at, competition scores and track records, because I think that's super important as well. None of those things are everything, or there's no single piece. They all work together. But obviously you get to college and it is a different game in terms of competition. You're competing 13 weeks in a row, and your team is counting on you to be able to hit a routine. So just kind of that idea of how they compete, how they handle pressure is important to kind of do some research into. But then, I would say outside of those things, and ultimately at the end of the day, more important than those things, go back to all the things that we already talked about of, what their attitude is like. There's nothing more helpful than, either watching a competition in person, watching a practice in person, or having an athlete here at a camp or any camp and getting to work with them, because we can watch videos all day long of skills and gymnastics and routines and parts, which is helpful. But what we're really looking to see is, how do they handle those bad turns? How do they interact with their coaches? How do they interact with their teammates? Are they leading? Are they pouting? Or, just those type of things are really going to, and I feel like you hear this from a lot of coaches and a lot of sports, and scouts, even in the majors. Those are kind of the quickest ways to get an X off the list. You could be the best of the best in all of the skill and ability part, but if those things don't line up, then being a part of this program is not necessarily going to work out for you anyway, because it wouldn't fit into our culture and our standards. So I think those are really important things to look at. And then in terms of just, making contact, I think, for better, for worse, we're all kind of all over the place all the time now. And so one way or another, the athletes can make contact. I think, personally being able to reach out through either an email or a text message even, but I think a lot of times just being able to put that email out there and provide some sort of direction as to, where your videos are located, what your social media is, if you have that and want that to be utilized by coaches. Because the first thing we're going to do, most likely if it's an athlete that we don't know of already, is go look at, their Instagram, look at their gymnastics page, see what their skill level looks like, check out meet scores and see, how they've competed. And then that will kind of initiate that path of like, okay, I feel like, this is an athlete that, has those things going. So I want, let's have a conversation. And from there, further communication would turn into just, whether it's back and forth in an email until you get a call and just setting that up. So I think, yes, if they're sending a DM or things like that, like those, they're being seen. But I think, personally, and like Kristen would, we prefer to be able to get that direct either in an email, or if their coach knows us and can, provide a phone number and they can reach out that way. I think that's much more helpful in just getting the process started.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And to kind of wrap up our conversation, I have a couple just like ending questions. One, what is the goal that you guys have for your season? And then what makes you ultimately excited about what you do? And then this would be three. Is there anything that you want to leave with the listeners or the viewers, or you want them to know about yourself, your program, or anything like that?
Yes. So goal for this season, our program goal is to qualify as a team to NCAA regionals. So to be top 36 in the country. It is something that our program has not done before. It's something we've talked about. It's something that, we have had that goal in prior years, but I feel like it has, really reached that point where it really is understood that we can do this and that this program is capable of it. And, I think this 2024 team coming in is just a great composition of a team in terms of the experience that we have, the leadership we have, the new talent we have. And I think, they all are just, I feel like we all just feel that this is it. This is going to be that next step for us. And that we're willing to, really understand what it takes and to do those things. And of course, there will be bumps along the way and things like that. But that's our number one goal. And, of course, along with that, like we want to win the conference championship and we want to win another USAG title. Those things by no means are givens. Those are not easy to accomplish. And those are still things that we strive for. But, for us being able to qualify to regionals as a team means just looking stronger at the start of season. I think, the last few years we get there by the end of season, but we need to be ready to come out and make a statement from the start. And so that's really where our focus is for this year. In terms of what I guess excites me about our program is obviously that getting to regionals. But a lot of people have asked me over the years and had questions just about why TWU, why still, what's next? Don't you want bigger? All of those things. And to me, those things don't really exist in my mind. To me, it's about being in a place that you can make an impact. And I feel that I have that opportunity here. And what excites me every year and constantly, and since I've been here, is that there's always the next step. There's always something new that we can accomplish, something we haven't done before. And right now that thing is regionals. And after that, there's going to be the next step. And so what excites me is chasing those goals and constantly working to put together the right pieces to accomplish those things. And, it comes with a lot of trial and error over the years, but it excites me to get to, start another new year. And there's nothing better than this time of year, knowing that our student athletes will move in. Next week, we'll have our first time that we're all together in the room together, and that's it. That's the start. So, yeah, that excites me. And I guess anything else I would want people to know, it just goes back to, I mentioned it earlier, but, particularly in the recruiting process, but really in the gymnastics world, to just have an open mind, to check it out, to come and see what we're doing, to hop on Instagram, to, get on YouTube, to watch one of our meets online on TV, come see our campus. I think there's just, like I said, there's so much that people don't know and don't explore. So come check us out, see what we've got. It's pretty incredible. I think, I don't want us to be a best kept secret, but I think we are in a lot of ways. And so just excited to keep growing this program, and there's big things ahead. So come be a part of it.
Yeah, love it. Love it. One of the things you had mentioned was the USAG championships. I had just 2 follow-up questions to that, and then we'll kind of wrap it up. One, what conference are you in, and what teams make up that conference? And 2, for people who don't know what the USAG championships are, what is that and what does it stand for? Is it, because for people who are in gymnastics know USAG to be like where there's the hopes and the juniors and stuff like that, or, the JO program or the developmental program is, people might ask, is college gymnastics part of that, or is it something separate?
Yes, great question, and often misunderstood. So our conference that we are a part of is the Midwest Independent Conference. And so that is made up of teams who are all independents, because the rest of our sports at our university are part of a conference that does not sponsor gymnastics as a sport, because they don't have other programs within their conference. So our conference is made up of us, Southeast Missouri State, Illinois State, Lindenwood, and Centenary College. So there are 5 of us in the conference that compete in our championship each year. And then the USAG, so the complete name of that championship is actually the USA Gymnastics Collegiate National Championship. And so it is under the USA Gymnastics umbrella as a sponsored event there. But it is for NCAA programs that have 7.5 or less gymnastic scholarships. So that's where, it gets a little confusing from the outside when you're like, is it a certain division? Is it but it's a mix of Division 1, 2, and 3 schools. And so the Ivy Leagues, for example, are obviously, we've got Brown and Cornell and Yale, who are Division 1 universities, however, not offering athletic scholarships. They can compete in that championship. Division 2 scholarship limit is 6. So all Division 2 programs can participate. And then we have had and do have some Division 1 programs that compete in the championship that are just not funded at that 12 full scholarships that Division 1 allows. So that's where we've kind of had some teams come in and out too over the years, is, if a team drops in their number of scholarships, say they used to be at 12 and then they drop down, they may qualify to compete in that championship. Or we've had teams that, are in that and then the school fully funds them, so then they're no longer eligible and they'll leave the championship. So that's a little bit of history as to why the field has changed a little over who participates each year. But that is the gist of the championship and how you're eligible for it. And then we have a whole, we utilize the NQS as far as rankings and all of that go to determine our qualification process, because we have a qualification process for teams and then individuals as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. And kind of, sharing with myself, our viewers, and our listeners about Texas Women's University, as well as gymnastics program, and to allow, prospect athletes, parents, and coaches kind of learn more about you. I think it's super important. And part of the reason why I'm doing this, especially with college coaches, is I think as no matter where you go, whatever institution it is, it's whoever is at lead of those institutions who can dictate what the experience you may have, right? And knowing those people and having some sort of data about those people, either prior to you starting or, kind of give you somewhere to start is super important. And allowing people to kind of know what's important to you. And hopefully they're able to tune in and be like, you know what, I really love what, TW is doing, especially under the leadership of, the staff that you have. And I want to be a part of that, and gives parents opportunities and gives coaches opportunities to kind of know more about you and to be able to help guide their athletes towards, the right university for them. And hopefully it's just part of, part of the path and part of solutions to where people find homes that they speak about for years and build relationships with teammates that they have for years. And, that's the ultimate goal. And with these heated conversations is really an acronym, right? To help equip athletes to transform and give them resources and give them opportunities to be able to get to their home, their next home for that season of their life. And so we really appreciate you. Thank you so much, everybody who's listened and tuned in to hear Lisa Bowerman speak about TWU. Tune in, follow them on all social media platforms, follow them on YouTube, check in on their competition season as they are trying to strive to get to that goal to make it to NCAA regionals and being one of the top 36. We're rooting for you guys, and hopefully you guys are able to do it. So we thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.